Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive.
Yeah,
This time, we're looking at how global power dynamics are shifting,
right.
especially with Africa's rise. It seems like every day there's a new headline
Hmm.
about this, and, you've sent us a ton of articles, analysis, even a YouTube video, so clearly you're wanting to go deeper than just the headlines
Yeah.
and really kind of grasp the bigger picture here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is a multipolar world truly inevitable, and what will that mean, especially for Africa?
Well, I think one of the things that's really fascinating right now is that we're seeing this shift play out
Yeah.
in so many different ways, economic, political,
Yeah.
even ideologically.
It's not just like a few isolated events. It's this whole
it is a confluence of
yeah,
factors that seems to be
pointing towards
a
something.
new global order.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's start with what's got everyone talking, this BRICS boom.
Right.
Over 40 countries are knocking on the door to join this club. More than 20 have formally applied.
We're talking big players here. Saudi Arabia, Iran, the UAE, Argentina, Indonesia.
Yeah, these are not
Big economies, big ambitions.
small players
Ugh.
at all. And I think it's really interesting because it's not just about wanting a seat at the table, right? It's about the table itself.
Right.
I mean, a lot of these nations, they see the current global system as,
Yeah.
dominated by institutions like the G7 as, outdated, right?
Outdated.
Not reflecting their growing economic clout.
Exactly.
And they see BRICS as a way to,
As a platform
as a platform to challenge that.
to challenge that dominance.
Yeah, and potentially reshape the rules of the game.
Right. So it's not just about camaraderie.
No.
It's about real power.
Yeah.
The ability to influence global decision-making, trade, finance.
Absolutely.
And one Chinese expert we were reading about, Wang Yuming,
Yeah.
argues that BRICS helps nations establish power commensurate with their economic size.
Right.
That sounds like a direct challenge
It is.
to the existing hierarchy.
It is a direct challenge.
Yeah.
It is. And we see this sentiment echoed in a lot of the material you shared.
Yes.
That Spanish website Rebellion.
Yeah.
They were talking about how many countries are increasingly uncomfortable with the U.S. dollar's dominance
Yes.
in global trade and finance.
Yeah, they're tired of
They're tired of being
being forced.
forced into dollar transactions.
Yes, and facing potential sanctions.
Yeah, facing sanctions if they don't align with U.S. policies.
Yeah, this dollar dominance, can you unpack that a bit?
Sure.
Because I hear that a lot. But to be honest, I'm still a little fuzzy on
Yeah.
what it actually means in practice.
So essentially, the U.S. dollar has been the world's reserve currency since World War II,
Okay.
which means that most international transactions, like buying oil or trading goods,
Mhm.
are done in U.S. dollars.
Okay.
And this gives the U.S. a lot of leverage,
Right.
but it also creates vulnerabilities.
For other countries.
For other countries, exactly. And that's what we're seeing
Okay.
with this BRICS expansion.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So BRICS could be a way to move away from that dollar dependency, create
Venture flows.
alternative financial systems.
It's certainly part of it. I
And
mean,
is that the idea?
they've been talking about creating their own currency
Really?
as a potential rival to the U.S. dollar.
Wow.
Now, whether that's feasible or how it would work
Right.
is a whole other discussion.
Of course.
But the intention is clear
Yeah.
to challenge
The existing
financial order.
financial order. That's right.
And you mentioned sanctions earlier, and that seems to be a big driver.
It is.
For some countries, looking at BRICS, they want to shield themselves from being penalized
Yeah.
for their political choices.
Absolutely. And you see that particularly with countries like Iran or Cuba,
Right.
which have been under U.S. sanctions for years.
For a long time.
And they see BRICS as a way to circumvent those sanctions,
Right.
forge economic ties with other nations that are also pushing back against Western dominance.
Yeah, the Cuban president was Diaz-Canel.
Diaz-Canel was
He's praising BRICS' defense of multipolarity.
Multipolarity,
Yeah.
another one of those buzzwords
I know, right?
for a listener who may be wondering what the heck that means.
Essentially, it's the opposite of a unipolar world where one power, like the U.S. calls the shots.
Right.
A multipolar world has several centers of power.
Okay.
So think BRICS, the EU, maybe even regional blocs
Yeah, okay.
in Africa or Latin America.
Got it.
It's about a more distributed balance of power.
Yeah. And you can see why that would be so appealing
Oh, absolutely.
to countries that have felt marginalized or dictated to by the current system.
Of course.
Yeah. It's like the tectonic plates of global power are shifting.
They are.
And BRICS is one of those pressure points
Yes.
where you can really see it happening.
Mhm.
But it's not just about economics or geopolitics, right?
Right.
There's a cultural and ideological dimension to this as well.
Absolutely. This idea of civilizational diversity keeps popping up
Yes.
in the material you've shared, particularly in relation to Russia's engagement with Africa.
Interesting.
It's a rejection of this idea that Western values and models are universal,
Right.
and a push for a more pluralistic world order
Okay.
where different cultures and systems of governance
Thing coexists.
can coexist.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it echoes what we're seeing in Africa itself.
Mhm.
It's not just about joining BRICS.
No, it's not.
It's about African nations becoming more assertive,
Yeah,
taking control of their own narratives and destinies.
exactly.
I mean, we're seeing this play out in the expulsion of French forces from several countries,
Right.
the renegotiation of contracts with foreign corporations, even in symbolic moves,
Right.
like Nigeria allowing its state oil firm to sell crude in Naira instead of U.S. dollars.
Yeah, it's about agency.
Yeah.
Reclaiming control over resources, narratives, and ultimately their own development path.
Right, and there's a sense that the old models imposed by the West
Haven't delivered.
haven't delivered,
Yeah.
and African nations are now looking for alternatives,
Yeah.
whether it's through BRICS partnerships with China or forging their own unique path.
Exactly.
Speaking of China, they've been making some serious inroads in Africa.
Yeah.
Their Belt and Road Initiative is pouring billions
Failure.
into infrastructure projects across the continent,
It's impressive.
and they're striking trade deals left and right.
Yeah. And Russia is also stepping up its engagement,
Oh, really?
offering military cooperation, often through the Wagner Group,
Hmm.
and expertise in resource extraction.
Interesting. So they're both positioning themselves as partners to Africa, presenting alternatives to that traditional Western model.
Yes.
But is this a genuine win-win partnership or just a new form of dependency with different players? Swapping one set of strings for another?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is.
And it's something that, as you learn more about this, you should think about, because on the surface, it looks like a mutually beneficial arrangement.
Right.
Africa needs investment infrastructure and technology,
Right.
which China and Russia are willing to provide.
Right.
In return, they gain access to resources, markets, and strategic partnerships.
But there are concerns about debt traps,
Yeah.
exploitation of resources, political influence.
Of course.
I mean, we've seen some pushback against Chinese investments in certain countries, allegations of labor abuses, environmental damage. It's not a simple equation.
No, it's complex and...
To complicate matters further,
Yes.
we have to factor in the re-election of Donald Trump
Right.
and what that might mean for Africa's trajectory.
Yeah, his America First policies and skepticism of multilateralism could very well push Africa further away from the U.S.,
Yeah.
accelerate this shift towards new partners.
That Kilimanjaro News Network video you sent was pretty blunt about that,
Yeah.
saying Trump's victory may accelerate Africa's strategic pivot away from traditional Western alliances.
Wow.
And if that happens, we could see significant changes in U.S. aid flows, trade relationships,
Yeah.
even security cooperation.
Absolutely. The African Growth and Opportunity Act,
Right.
a GOA, which
Yes.
gives preferential trade access to the U.S. market,
Right.
could be on shaky ground.
Yeah. And with Trump's disengagement from climate agreements,
Yeah.
African nations might be forced to look elsewhere for support on this crucial issue.
That's a big deal.
Yeah. So it's like a perfect storm brewing. You've got BRICS expansion, China and Russia making moves, Trump's return adding another layer of uncertainty.
Uncertainty for sure.
And right in the middle of it all, you have the potential for a major shakeup at the UN Security Council.
Yeah, the U.S. supporting 2 permanent seats for Africa
I know.
on the Security Council is
Sure.
a huge development.
Huge development.
Yeah.
I mean, we've never seen this level of explicit endorsement from a permanent member before.
Never.
Even though Africa has been advocating for this since 2005,
For a long time.
it's being framed as a way to address historical underrepresentation and counter China's growing influence.
It is.
But as with everything in geopolitics,
Right.
the devil is in the details.
Always.
Which 2 countries will get those seats?
Right.
Will they have veto power? And will this really shift the power dynamics at the UN, or will it just be a symbolic gesture?
Lots of unanswered questions.
Lots of unanswered questions.
Yeah, a lot of unanswered questions.
Yeah,
Host speaker. It feels like we're on the brink of a whole new era.
it does.
Yeah.
In global affairs, we've got BRICS challenging the old guard, China and Russia offering these alternative partnerships.
Right.
The U.S. potentially retreating further into itself.
Yeah.
And Africa right at the heart of it all. asserting its agency and demanding a greater say
Yeah.
in its own future.
And that's really the key takeaway here.
Yeah.
Africa is no longer a passive player
Right?
on the global stage. It's a continent with its own ambitions, its own complexities, and its own potential
Right.
to shape the future.
It's easy to get lost in the geopolitical maneuvering and the power plays.
Yeah.
But ultimately, this is about people,
Yeah.
their lives, their aspirations. We're talking about a continent brimming with innovation, creativity, and a fierce determination
Yeah.
to chart its own course.
And that's what makes this whole discussion so fascinating.
Yeah.
We're not just talking about abstract concepts like multipolarity or civilizational diversity.
Right.
We're talking about the very real impact these shifts will have
Yes.
on the lives of millions of people across Africa and around the world.
So as you continue to explore these topics,
Yeah.
we encourage you to go beyond the headlines and delve into the human stories
Right.
that are shaping this transformation. Seek out perspectives from African writers, artists, entrepreneurs, activists,
Yeah. The people on the ground
the people on the ground.
who are living and breathing this change every day.
Their voices will enrich your understanding
Yeah.
in a way that no policy paper or news report can.
Absolutely.
You gain insights into the challenges they face, the opportunities they seize, the dreams they hold
Yeah.
for the future. Imagine if you were an African leader right now.
Mhm.
What would be your top priorities?
Good question.
Would you focus on attracting foreign investment, even if it meant making compromises?
Right.
On environmental regulations?
Hmm.
Or would you prioritize building strong regional partnerships? Even if it meant navigating these complex political rivalries, would you embrace China's Belt and Road Initiative,
Right.
despite concerns about debt and transparency?
No.
Or would you seek to diversify your partnerships,
Yeah.
balancing engagement with China, Russia, the West, and other emerging powers?
These are the tough choices
I know.
that African leaders are grappling with.
Yeah, choices that will have profound implications
They will.
for their countries and for the wider world.
Yeah, there's no easy answer.
Right.
There's no one-size-fits-all solution.
No.
But by engaging with these questions, by seeking out diverse perspectives, and by thinking critically about the information you encounter,
Right.
you can develop your own informed understanding of this complex and rapidly evolving landscape.
Remember, the world is changing,
It is.
and Africa is at the forefront of that change. It's a continent of immense potential,
Yeah.
but also profound challenges.
And as we move further into the century, understanding the nuances of Africa's rise will become increasingly crucial.
Right.
It's about recognizing the continent's growing geopolitical importance, its impact on global trends, and ultimately its potential to shape a more just and equitable future for all.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Yeah, thanks for sending in such fascinating material.
We hope it sparked your curiosity and given you a fresh perspective on the forces shaping our world.
Absolutely. Keep learning.
Keep exploring.
Keep exploring and keep those amazing minds of yours engaged.
Because in a world this complex,
Oh, it is.
the more we understand,
Yeah.
the better equipped we are to navigate the challenges and seize the opportunities
Excellent.
that lie ahead.
Couldn't agree more. It really is, yeah. It feels like we're at this
Yeah.
pivotal moment. It's kind of like
A tipping point
a
almost,
tipping point.
where things could go in a lot of different directions.
Yeah.
And the choices that are made now
Yeah.
are going to have
Huge implications.
huge implications, for decades to come.
Down the road.
And, we've talked a lot about the big players,
Right.
the BRICS, China, Russia, the U.S. But at the end of the day, this is about the people
Yeah.
living in these countries,
Absolutely.
their hopes, their dreams, their struggles. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to encourage you to keep digging deeper.
Yes.
Go beyond the headlines. Seek out the voices of everyday Africans.
Yeah.
Read their stories. Listen to their perspectives, because their experiences are what will ultimately shape the future of the continent.
Exactly. And I think that's what makes this whole topic so compelling.
Yeah.
It's not just about abstract geopolitical maneuvering.
Right.
It's about real people's lives.
And their futures.
And their futures.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think...
As we've been talking, I've been thinking a lot about,
Yeah.
what it would actually be like to be an African leader right now,
Right.
facing these incredibly complex decisions.
Because they're not easy.
No, they're not.
Yeah.
Do you align with the West?
Right.
Do you embrace China's Belt and Road Initiative? Do you try to forge a completely independent path?
It's a tough balancing act.
It is a tough balancing act. And I think the more we understand the complexities of these
Yeah,
choices,
right.
the better equipped we'll be to engage in meaningful conversations about the future of Africa.
Absolutely, because it's a continent that's going to play an increasingly important role
Oh, yeah.
on the world stage.
Yeah. So thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
And as always, keep those amazing minds of yours engaged.
Keep learning.
Keep learning and keep exploring and keep asking those tough questions.
Yeah, because the world needs more curious minds like yours.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, that's it for this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.
See you then.